Welcome to the Crazy Cool Family Podcast with Don and Suzanne Manning. Parents, what if we could give you the power to transform your family into something absolutely amazing?
A family where everyone is healthy, gets along, loves Jesus, and has great purpose in life.
Hey, let us flip your thinking to unlock the power God has given you to create your own Crazy Cool family. Welcome to the Crazy Cool Family Podcast. Don and Suzanne Manning, we are in our series called Who Knows Your Kid Best? And we are going through all of our children this summer, all 7 of them, and talking to them about how they were parented. We're talking to them about relationships with their siblings and all this. And today we've been through all the girls. And so now we go to the first, our oldest child, Michael. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you.
We are excited to have, finally, Michael, I've been doing girls for all summer. Now I get to switch over to the boys. So
well, and that's how life was too. You had done girls for ever. Let's see, we were married in 91. So you'd almost done girls for a full decade. And then Michael was born in 2000. And so that was kind of like, you've done girls all summer. You also did girls for pretty much a full decade.
Full decade, yes. And then Suzanne, you might want to just comment on, so Michael, the story of the birth of Michael coming into existence and how we found out he was a boy and how it was just transformational for our family.
Oh, yeah. I would say that Michael, and we say this all the time, that he was worshiped and adored as a little boy. Absolutely. I'd gone in and I had all the little girls with me and we went to get the sonogram and Don wasn't there for some reason. I think it was just like let's just do a sonogram and check on him or check on the baby. And we found out that it was a boy and we were just elated. I mean, 5 women, so excited. We went and bought blue balloons and blue cigar gummy, bubble gum cigars and went to Don's work and came parading in. So, but how did you feel about having a son finally after all those girls?
Oh, I never thought I'd have a boy. I mean, we just kept having girls and I never thought I'd have a boy. So yeah, I mean, super excited. And it was, and then, so Michael, let's get to you. So we have this boy.
How do you feel about being a boy?
How do you feel about boy?
Yeah, let's not start on that question.
Yeah, we get in big trouble there.
He really does get worship and adored because there are 5 women in the house that love babies and are so excited about having a boy. What are your first memories of being home?
Yeah, being little.
Yeah, I think one of my first memories I had, and I don't know if it's a memory that I actually had or if it's just like pictures I've seen from growing up or if it's just stories that my sisters told me growing up, but I just remember, like, for some reason all 4 of my sisters were in our old house that I barely remember, and they would like stack up these cardboard Lego blocks that we had, and they would stack them up to like just as tall as I was, and then they would have me run through it. And I would just like take off and run through it and crash the whole thing. And then all of them would cheer and go crazy. It was like playing fetch with a dog and they just like never want to stop. I was just like, okay, stack it up again. And then I would run through it and they would cheer and go crazy. And that, like, even to this day is something that I think kind of displays childhood for me. Was any action I did, any sport I played, literally anything I did, I had 4 cheerleaders that were going berserk and going crazy and cheering me on and everything that I did, just because I was the first boy and it was different. And so that's like one of my very first memories I ever have that I think about often.
Yeah, I transitioned that to playing baseball.
Yeah.
And his sisters would come out to the game and they would just be idiots, in the stands, just woohoo, Michael.
Just trying to embarrass him.
Yeah.
Just trying to.
Absolutely mortifying, because baseball is a slow, quiet, relaxed game. And there are these 4 obnoxious girls in the stands screaming at every little thing that happens. Every pitch, every ball hit towards me, and the whole stadium can hear everything.
Yeah, the umpires would recognize it. You were over on third base and they'd be like, okay, That's weird, you
They're
know?
like, you got a little fan section. And I was like, yeah, I know.
What do you think? So what do you perceive growing up, your personality like?
Yeah, like describe yourself.
Yeah. How would you say you would describe yourself?
Yeah. My personality growing up, I think I was definitely pretty independent and pretty content. Kind of how it felt like it paired off in the family is the sisters would hang out. Molly and Madeline were kind of buddy buddies, and Mackenzie and Macy were buddy buddies, and then Maddox and McCade were really buddy buddies. And I felt like my role kind of in the middle right there. I just didn't really need a friend, like a person or like someone to like play with me all the time. I was very content playing by myself. I actually preferred and loved to play by myself. I even remember getting Lego sets as a little kid. I like loved Lego sets. And Mackenzie would like so bad want to help me build it.
And Mackenzie's right above you.
Mackenzie's right above me.
Yeah, couple of years.
2 years above me. And she's like, can I just like, Mackenzie's just being absolutely so caring and loving and wants to support and help in every way. She's like, can I just like help you build it? And I was like, no, this is like, let me just do it by myself. Like, I just want like, I'm like an old man at like age 7. I'm like, I just want some alone time. So she would like get the pieces and like set them out for me and everything so that I could build them. But by no means could she talk to me while it was happening. Like,
so the beginnings of an introvert.
Yeah, very much so.
And the beginnings of a independent, self-sufficient young man. And, you know, one of the things we're talking about a lot is so you've got 2 kids there, a girl and a boy, you know, about the same age, but could not be any more different relationally. Mackenzie, relationship focused, loves relationship. Michael, much more, you know, not that he doesn't love relationships, but, you know, much more independent, much more introverted. How do you parent those kids? You know, what does that look like when you have 2 very different kids? Well, you parent them differently. You buy that kid Lego sets and you say, hey, go build this. And then you praise, wow, isn't that amazing what you've built? And I do think that there's a characterization of your childhood as what you said, Suzanne, that Michael was worshiped and adored, and a lot of praise. Do you remember that? I mean, just growing up, and we really, you talked about sports. Sports a big part of your life in the young ages.
Yeah, I had I think that foundation of really just like affirmation in everything that I did. Allows me today, as I'm like seeing the fruit of it, that I walk with a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of things, I don't want to sound prideful, and some of it is prideful, is like both sides of this, of growing up that's like this, of like any situation I approach, I'm like, I can do it. I can figure it out. And I think that comes from that same image, is I'm like, yeah, they're going to set up the blocks, I'm going to tear them down, and I'm going to like, they're going to freak out and it's going to be awesome. I kind of approach life with a lot of that thing, that same mindset. And in sports it was very similar. I was also held back a year. And so being in middle school and being sometimes a full 365 days older than some of those kids, I just like was a little bit taller and a little bit bigger. And that kind of played into a lot of confidence that I had just building up, that I think was coming straight from my parents and from my family.
Yeah, and I think that the contrast too with Michael and the sisters was that, like Molly and Madeline and Macy, they were flamboyant. They were out there. We've talked about that. Big personalities. They fill up the room. And so it kind of starts sliding down with Mackenzie, but with Michael, like I would say that's the opposite of you. Like when you walk into a room, you don't demand attention, but you very much have a presence. And so I just think that dynamic of those big, loud sisters who were worshiping and adoring you created this independent foundation for you, but it was not a show off. Like you never were a show off. You never were like, watch me, watch me, watch me. You know, you were just like, you would just do it. And then everybody would just erupt in, oh my gosh, did you see what Michael did? Well, and do you see that in your life today too, Michael, that's, you don't.
Yeah. Madeline can take the attention for both of us. Not okay. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Well, and I remember Michael being a young kid and really having anger issues. We were introducing a boy into the family. And I think, Suzanne, you had and parents, if you're dealing with your first boy, especially females, Suzanne, you had a sister, that was it. And you'd had 4 girls and you'd babysitted some, but now you have this boy in your home. And as a young boy, he is demonstrating boyness. And
I remember there was one story, Michael, that and I know the sisters, as much as they worshiped and adored him, they also drove him insane. Because of the way he's wired, introvert, leave me alone, independent. I don't want to be your toy anymore to the sisters. I don't want to be your dolly, your baby. Quit making me dress up like this. I know the tension that I can look back and see the tension that he had and he was feeling. And at one point in time, there was one day, I don't know what the sisters did to trigger it. I'm not at all saying it was Michael's fault. I'm completely blaming the sisters fully and completely, probably Macy more so than anybody else, because she was the antagonist. She was the big brother that Michael really needed, to, whip him into shape. But anyway, I just remember him grabbing a knife out of the kitchen and chasing the girls. Yeah. And that just blew my mind.
Like 3 years old, 3 or 4 years
old. Oh, yeah,
old.
little. Little. And I was like, first of all, how did he know where the knives were? Second of all, how did he reach in the drawer and get it? And third, what is it that's happening? And I just remember the girls are all locked in a room, mom, mom, mom. And I'm like, Michael, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm getting him, Mom. I'm getting him. And he took the knife and he's getting the door. He's to the door. And I'm having visions of serial killer. No, not really. But I called Dawn and I'm like, Dawn, you have to come home. I never tell you have to come home. And Dawn is like, Suzanne, calm down. That's a boy. That's a dude. He got triggered. I'm like, unacceptable. And he goes, yeah, no, it's definitely not. I'll talk to him about it. But anyway, do you have any?
Yeah, that memory is another one of those memories where I'm like, okay, how much? I think I remember that one a lot more than like the first memory that we talked about. I can see pictures and I've heard a lot of stories about that, but this one I remember so vividly because I think I was older than 3 or 4, but I don't know how old I was.
Maybe 12.
Yeah.
16.
I don't know how old. No. I don't threaten people with knives anymore. But I can so consciously, I remember myself going and opening the drawer, grabbing the knife and walking they're in the playroom and being very in control of everything that I was thinking. And I was just like, they've messed with me. I'm going to scare them. I remember having zero intention of actually hurting or doing anything. I remember being fairly, if I remember correctly, which memory is faulty, but that I was pretty calm, cool, and collected. And I was just they need to know that they can't do this, or I'm standing my ground and I'm not having this anymore. But that's not to say there's multiple times that playing sports that also that situation, I was banging the door and poking the knives at the door and damaged the door. And I remember Dad making me sand the door and paint the door because it was this is consequences of your actions. You can't do something. You can't
destroy something.
It was still wrong. But I remember
I don't care how calm you were.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if I just wanted to scare them or not, it doesn't matter. But I remember situations of being so angry I couldn't control myself, especially and we were going through, I was playing baseball outside with Maddox one time, and I remember throwing a wiffle ball at him just because I was so angry that my little brother beat me in a game of baseball because I wasn't having
competitive. That's another trait we got to put in there that, yeah.
Oh yeah. Competitive to a fault. I like to win.
That comes straight from Don's line. Genetics.
Yeah.
But it's a scary thing as a kid. And I remember being scared of myself, knowing what I was doing in my actions and throwing, it was a plastic bat, but still throwing it at my little brother, seeing the fear in his eyes was yes, I got punished for that, but I almost punished myself more because I was just man, what am I actually capable of? And I think that's what sports were such a beautiful thing in my life, is that anger and that energy could be put out towards something. And not only that, but I could be able to control it and discipline myself to there's a point that I didn't like myself playing basketball and had to stop playing basketball because I couldn't control my actions on the court. And I didn't myself essentially on the court because I was a jerk and I was like frustrated and I was angry and I like couldn't control my emotions. And so there's something to be said about creating a safe environment in your home where those emotions are not wrong, they're not bad, but they can be controlled, especially for young boys, because we are little demons walking around.
Little testosterone balls.
Well, and, full of testosterone and everything else. So let's talk about that.
But just trying to find it. But just to go back to that for just a second, just to take a minute on that, because I know we had friends that had 5 boys, and so she was in a world of that. And so, parents, mamas out there that have little boys, just know that part of our roles as they grow up is to show them self-control and to give them examples of self-control and to help them understand that when they lose their self-control, how do you gain it back? And what do you do? And how do you choose? Like, that was such a big thing, Michael, that you chose to stop playing basketball because you saw things in your life that you didn't like that would come out on the basketball court. And I just think that parents, instead of saying, losing your self-control with your child, turning around and just saying, okay, how do we have self-control in this situation? What does self-control look like? And walking them through that and presenting them with options of self-control. I'm so glad you brought that up, Michael.
Well, and the basketball was late middle school when you quit that. And, so it wasn't like even at a younger age that you recognized it, later in your childhood that was happening. And I was curious, like, so really we've kind of established this male, independent, full of energy. Another thing for parents, of boys, they tend to play differently than girls in many ways, and they need outlets for that energy, things like that. So as you think about growing up, what would you say was that as parents that we helped nurture that, or maybe some things that we did that were frustrating to you in the parent to kid relationship for you?
Yeah. I think one thing looking back on my childhood now is for whatever reason, y'all always gave me knives. Like every time I feel like you came back from a mission trip, came back from a foreign country. I remember even like in early middle school, mom going out and I wanted a few new like knives, and my mom just went out and like got them for me, like different kind of knives, or like switchblades, or switchblades are illegal, but just like different kind of knives. And even when I turned 13, like you took me out to a hunting lease that we were at and like gave me like a bow. I don't shoot bows. Like I'm not very outdoorsy, or like I like hunting and we just don't do it very often. But it was just something so much deeper that I'm like just now connecting 10 years later, is like this weapon that y'all entrusted me with as a little kid. And you showed me how to use it. You showed me what it was for. And it's like, they just stood on my shelves. Like I didn't actually use them. Very little times that I actually go out and use any of the weapons that I got. But it was almost like an initiation of like my heart coming out and being like, especially with the bow. I remember that so distinctly because it was 13 and it was like, this is a bow. You brought someone in to show us how to shoot it, how to use it, when to use it, why we would use it. And it was just like, the item itself was important, but really it was like, hey, I'm trusting you with something dangerous. Like this is something that like awakened my heart as a kid and was like, this is something powerful that you can use, that you can master, that you can have control over. And that right there, like spoke wonders into my heart and like brought me into being something of like, okay, you're not a little kid, you're a boy now. And really just like speaking that out was one thing. I was like, okay, I think that kind of like put hair on my chest. I think that kind of just like changed my mindset a little bit to stop acting like a child and start acting and thinking like a man. Also, whenever you left the house for extended periods of time, you didn't do it often, but there's times that you went to China and you went to a few places. I was young, and you're like, Michael, you're the man of the house. And I remember thinking, I was like, Dad, thank you, but like, if someone comes in, I'm 7 years old. I'm like, there's nothing I can do here. What does it mean to be the man of the house? And it's like, if anything happens, Michael, you're in charge. And obviously it wasn't literal, but still that like command and that like calling up higher, just like literally, like you can just like see probably me at 7 years old just lift my shoulder and lift my head up a little bit, because I was like, yeah, I am. And that was just a few things that I remember of just like call out the man that's in the boy right now. Like call him out, because he wants to come out and he wants something dangerous and he wants something exciting and he wants his heart to be alive. And not unfortunately, but it comes from the male. Like it can't necessarily come from the female, the mom in the relationship. Like the male, the dad, the fatherly figure is going to have to be the one that initiates his heart and brings him out of boy into manhood.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's good.
But on the flip side of that, the mom can't coddle the little boy. I mean, and that's a real fine line, because, oh my goodness, I definitely cuddled you and snuggled you more than I did than all the little girls. I mean, your chubby little self. Oh my goodness. I mean, you're just a little, I mean, just loved that. And so that there were times that it was, I mean, even raising, like dad was easier. I don't know if you were easier on the girls, but you didn't get the girls and you got the boys. And it felt like to me, you were a little bit harder on the boys because you were calling out that man in them.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I was like, no, I'll do your laundry. And no, I'll empty the trash. No, yeah. I mean, but I do remember there's times if there's anything involving an animal, then the boys needed to go do it. Like, didn't y'all kill a skunk in the backyard? And if the dead cat in the house, you had to bury that.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about the armadillo.
The armadillo. Yeah.
We got the
Anytime
bow
there was
out after. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually did use that bow.
in real life.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I love that, to just find opportunities to present to your son, to pull out the man in him. That's what you're saying. And we did that a few times along the way to solidify that you're a man, and this is what a man is, and this is what a man does, and this is how a man leads.
So I'd like to ask this question and kind of transition it also into the sibling relationships, but like with your parents and siblings, what frustrated you as a growing up with your parents and then subsequently with your siblings?
I think growing up, I still value my alone time. I'm pretty particular. That's the word I'm looking for. Pretty particular.
I would say you're peculiar too.
Pretty particular in like social settings / like when I'm feel energized to do something. If you know anything about trying to get an introvert to do something, it can be like pulling teeth. And so I think that was a few things that would frustrate me sometimes or annoy me sometimes, is like the sisters or siblings expecting more out of me, and I just didn't have a lot to give energy wise. Parenting wise, where do I even begin?
With your frustrations?
Yeah,
where do I begin with my frustrations?
So many. Well, Michael, I mean, just to take a second, Michael is a 5 on the Enneagram, and that right there was so helpful. He's the one that led us into the whole Enneagram system once he had when you were in college. Is that when that happened?
Yeah, senior year of high school.
Yeah, and he kind of educated all of us on it, and that was so oh my goodness, powerfully informative for us to know that he was a 5 and to learn the type of a 5, because it did interact so differently with that introvert and that competitiveness and that knowledge and that all the different things that a 5 represents. So I think if I would have known that, I don't even know if how it shows up as a kid, but I think if I would have known more about him as a kid, then we probably wouldn't have frustrated him as much.
Yeah, I mean, we could do another podcast on Enneagram and all of that nonsense. But yeah, it was helpful. 5s on the Enneagram are known to be the hardest relationally to connect with and to get along with. And so it felt very loving and supportive as I introduced it to the family. I was like, essentially what I was telling them was, I was like, this is a good way to get to know me and to love me best, because I had a hard time. I still have a hard time articulating feelings, articulating things. I'm thinking them and I'm very much in my head. And so I think one thing that y'all did growing up was just like didn't stop pursuing me. And I would get pretty offensive. I'd get pretty defensive really quickly especially those middle school ages when I was just kind of a punk and was doing my own thing and not wanting to listen to y'all, not wanting to listen to the structures and the rules that you had in place. I think one thing, as I'm really trying to think back, is I didn't like commands that didn't have a why behind them. And I think this is similar for a lot of males in particularly, is that we like the why and we like the heart behind something. And it's much easier to take out the trash whenever you know that trash is going to stink up the house if you don't take it out in the next couple of days. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll take out the trash, instead of just being like, take out the trash. I'm like, you take out the trash. I don't want to do that. Or just like little things like that is just like, if there's a command, follow it up with why you want that, fill it up with the need that it's fulfilling. Because I think men want to be providers and we want to provide. And it was one of my favorite things getting into, and it still is one of my favorite things to be able to provide for my sisters whenever they're in times of need. Like, that just speaks to a part of my heart that is like a core desire to like provide and to take care of my family.
Like move Molly into an apartment every August for 5 years in a row.
Yeah, for sure. Like, that was just something that we did, and it was great.
Yeah. And speaking of that, the frustrations and things sometimes that you and I really, you're talking about the middle school years. I mean, you and I had some real frustrations within those middle school years. Explain that a little bit, as you're walking through those years of your life.
Yeah, I think those few years were challenging, and it's hard, and
I'll say,
yeah. I know, but it was kind of difficult, even like kind of feeling like the black sheep of the family, like kind of feeling on the outside of the family of all. I was going through probably more difficult things than the rest of the sisters even went through, and even probably what the brothers have gone through, and stuff that I was doing and wasn't ideal. It wasn't God honoring. It wasn't glorifying to the Lord. And I knew that. Like, I was raised well. I knew what I was doing wasn't right. And I felt condemnation. I felt shame, like without even any of my parents knowing anything. And then once they found out more things, I felt like I was met with more condemnation, more punishment, more shame, more just like, I was like, I know, like, it's just like, now you're telling me this and I'm telling myself this, and this is just like more weight than I can even bear. And that like really caused me to like shrill up, caused me to like absolutely stop and get frustrated and defend. And so there's like something to be said amongst them. Like, it is like the Lord's kindness that leads us to repentance. And chances are, like, your kid knows what he's doing, what she's doing is wrong. Chances are she or he probably doesn't want to be doing it. And they just don't know maybe how. And so I think before there was any like questions of what was happening and how I was doing, it was kind of a freak out moment. I felt like, because this is the first time that you're experiencing any of this, like the first time you're experiencing a kid going through any sort of difficulty, a boy going through this kind of difficulty. And it was just like, oh my gosh. And it probably came earlier than you were expecting. And just like all of this stuff. And I was just like, I'm terrible. Like, I'm the worst. Like, I have no value. All my older sisters felt the pressure of them. They're superstars and they're awesome. And I'm just the outside of the goodness of God even. And so that took a long time to recover and restore, like, that hurt and wound. I don't know. What do you have to say?
Well, yeah, I mean, a little context. I mean, it had to do with just dating and a girl that was involved in your life, and and then there was a breakup with her, and then trying to get back and just trying to help navigate that relationship with you. And it's interesting how, because that you felt a lot of shame, and that you felt like that we were coming down really hard on you. And I'm just curious what brought about the change in thinking when did you, there was a whole semester of that really. And then, but over time things, and that's one of the things, even as, it's not I don't look at it as our greatest parenting moment, but that season, but yet today we have a great relationship. The relationship got restored, even though we didn't probably handle it. We needed to be, it was almost like we needed to be firm, but we didn't know how to do it in so many ways. And so, but yet I want to give parents hope that, as the relationship's it got restored. So walk us down that path a little bit.
Yeah, it was, I remember probably at the apex of our conflict, Dad. You picked me up in Waco because I spent the weekend.
Oh, I never will forget this ride. Oh gosh.
I spent the weekend in College Station, which I'll come back to in a second. And Dad met me in Waco. My sisters dropped me off in Waco, and my dad picked me up in Waco. So Waco was like 2 hours away from here or so. And my middle school self just gave Dad the cold shoulder the entire time, the complete silent treatment.
2 hours of absolute torture.
Not even a word.
Because I'm an extrovert. I love to talk,
I just got back from a trip essentially. And
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, never will forget it.
And yeah, I was over it. But that I remember that distinctly because that started a healing process. Because as I was in, we call it my funk, just like the season that I was in, just a rough season. For whatever reason, I skipped an entire week of school, and my mom and dad sent me off to College Station to live with Madeline for a week. Like, is that right?
It wasn't for whatever reason. What we were trying to do is he was in middle school and he was just caught up in this middle school world as middle school kids get. I mean, they think this is life. This is it. This is all that it is. And so we were looking for opportunities to show him, oh, buddy, the world's so much bigger. It's so much bigger than middle school. If you would just see how much bigger it is, see how much God's got, for you out there. And so the girls had an incredible life in College Station. They were following God, they were in church, all those things. And so we knew that would be a great environment to send him into so that he could see, oh, college life is bigger. I mean, another thing that we did, we also sent you on a mission trip because we wanted to get you outside of the parameters of even our country. We wanted to get you. So we were trying to open your eyes up that this feels like a big deal right now. This feels like shame and guilt. This feels like you messed up major, but this is just a blip on the radar. This is so minor compared to everything that's going to happen in your life. And that's what we were trying to do, is we were trying to break you out of that. So so we packed you up. We sent you to the sisters who once again worshiped and adored you and were willing to, show you a bigger world. And so anyway, I completely forgot about that drive home.
And so I think that's the answer to the question is like, just if you can give your kid perspective, like that's what snapped me out of a lot of it. Like perspective on life, perspective on my situation. I look back at that time and laugh because it's just funny and it's hilarious to see the way that I was acting and see. I was just so blinded by my sin and blinded by what was in front of me. And I think that's how the enemy wants to work. I think that he wants to do that. But if we can just take a step back, get out of the situation that we are in and see things with a little bit like a clear view, a clear lens. That's why I think mission trips are so important. You should do whatever it takes to get your kid on a mission trip because they see a different perspective. They see things differently. They see people living differently. And I think all of those things were crucial to the point of I got sent off. That's sounds like I went to a camp for
well, that was on the table. I mean, we were going to do whatever it took. I mean, first was a college week, then it was going to be, the wilderness is what we were going to be. You're going to live in a tent out in the wilderness. Yeah. Use leaves for toilet paper. Yeah.
But the perspective part, and then I think that was 8th grade year. And then freshman year on mission trip to Dominican Republic, I remember just being so frustrated because I was at that time, I was starting to follow the Lord. At that time, I was taking my faith a little bit more seriously. I was out of that whole funk that I was in middle school. And I was just heard about this thing, and as I was going to church, heard about like people being able to hear the voice of God and listen to him speak, and I just couldn't do it. Like I was just like, this is not happening. I'm sitting and waiting and listening and trying, and it's like there's nothing happening that is going on. And I like remember the first time very clearly, the Lord is just like, Michael, right now you see me like you see your earthly father. And at that point in my life, I did not see you very in good light. I was like, I don't want to follow that. Like if I'm going to dedicate my life to a God in Jesus, and I'm seeing him as my earthly father, at the time, that was not what I wanted. I was like, no, it's not going to happen. And I remember praying with you because you were on that trip, Suze, and just like repenting and changing my perspective of my earthly father and understanding that my heavenly father is perfect in every way, and that is something that it's worth committing my life to. And that just changed a lot of the things. And I like came back from that mission trip, and this is, I think I don't know if I've told the story on this podcast or not. I've only been on a couple of times, so probably not. But I remember being outside shooting hoops late one night, like 11 o'clock after church or something like that. And I was just like shooting, messing around, talking with the Lord, just processing a lot of things. And it like got to like 11:30, maybe 11:45. And I was like, okay, Lord, I'm ready to tell my dad some things that I'm frustrated with. I'm ready to like start this reconciliation process. Because granted, at this time, my dad's been pursuing me the whole time and I've been resisting, but my dad's been pursuing the whole time. And I'm like, no, not going to happen.
I'm in charge.
I'm in charge. I'm only going to play on my terms. And it's 11:45 or so. And I was like, okay, if my dad comes out here, he's already in bed. All the lights off are in the house. If my dad comes out here and starts shooting hoops with me, maybe I'll talk to him. But like, you have to get him out here, Dad. Or you have to get him out here, God. And like, I kid you not, like 2 seconds later, I hear the door open and he walks out, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. I'm like, are you serious?
I remember that night too.
This is not cool. But I think that was actually the start of a lot of processing of our relationship starting to mend. Was a lot of work on my back end that was just like wrestling with the Lord, trying to hear his voice, pursuing him, that he eventually led me to reconciliation with my earthly father, you, Don.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's a couple things, look at the time frame that we're talking about. End of 7th grade year, all the way through 8th grade year, going into 9th grade year. I remember back in the 8th grade year, it might have been, anyway, I'd given you a journal and said, hey, Michael, when you just write down your thoughts, and I really wanted it to be, I said, if you can't talk to me, write it down. And you never gave it to me, but until months later, we looked at the journal and you had actually used it to write things down in there. And it was so angry. I mean, there was just, I hate life. It was so.
I think I still have that.
And it was amazing to me to read it. It made me cry too. But I mean, it was like, because, and parents, just, what do we take out of that? And I want to get into the sibling relationships too, because I think there's some great things to unpack there. Because, Michael said we kept pursuing him. We tried to change his thinking, open his world up a little bit. But sometimes it takes a long time. I mean, you and I just sat down last night, had just a heck of a discussion about life, as we do a lot now. But literally sometimes those relationships take years to pursue to get the breakthrough that God wants for you.
Yeah.
And so, I think those are, sometimes a parent, you may be a parent in the middle of the difficult season. It may be with a 5-year-old, it may be with an 8-year-old, maybe with a 14-year-old, whatever it is, man, there's always hope if you'll keep pursuing. I was just at breakfast this morning with a man who, his daughter had been estranged from him for 20 years. And when his daughter got married and when they had a baby, is now they are reconciled. And he was rejoicing in the relationship that he had pursued for 20 years. Don't give up hope, parents, is really what comes out of that.
Yeah.
Hey, you also, go ahead, Suzanne, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that before you transition to the siblings or whatever, I just wanted to do that mother-son relationship too, Michael. I want to press into that because you talked so much about the father being an influence and that season with you and dad, but even mothers to sons, what would what would be your advice to moms on how to connect with their sons, especially when they're going through those growth times when there is a disconnect? And so, and I just want to say my point, and then I just want you to answer that, but I wanted to give you a couple seconds to think about it. What would you say to moms to connect to their sons? But there was a couple things that I remember in those middle school years. I remember totally having Michael's heart and totally getting him. Like I got him, I understood him. I knew what to say to him, to draw him out. I knew when to give him space. I knew when to let him to be independent. I knew that until middle school hit. And then it felt like everything was turned upside down and I didn't get it anymore. And I remember Michael basically helping me through that to stay connected to him or be connected or even let me disconnect a little bit. And one of the things that you did, Michael, is I remember you telling me, Mom, I don't want to do face to face. I want to do shoulder to shoulder, or I want to be doing something. And so I remember us sitting there playing checkers so we could have a conversation. Or I remember getting in the car and talking because boys, young men don't want that face to face come at me. I mean, and then I learned later that actually men don't either, women. When you're talking to your husband, they don't want you coming at him, if you're anyway. And so what's something else that you can tell moms as they're trying to connect to their sons, as their sons are trying to grow up and not be a mama's boy and all of that?
Yeah, I think that is something that I still do, especially with other guys, is that you don't just like go get coffee with another guy. Like you go shoot hoops, or you like go play video games, or you're doing something, and for whatever reason, when our hands are moving, or it's easier for our mouths to move also. Like I don't understand it. I don't know why. That is just how men operate and work. You want to get a guy to talk to you, do something. I think that is crucial and important. I would say moms, just ask so many questions to the point where you will be annoying. Like it is true that we are very defensive, and I won't personally just tell everything the first question. Like I'm almost playing a game, which even in my relationship right now is tough working with people. Is like, I'm just like kind of testing you. It's like, oh, you asked me once, I gave you a short response. It's like, how much do you really want to know? Like, okay, you ask another question. Okay, you want to know a little bit more. Then I like give another, like a little bit longer response, but still kind of a short response. You ask a third time. I'm like, okay, they actually want to know. Okay, here it is. Like, unfortunately, sometimes it takes 3 times. Sometimes it takes 600 times. Like, I don't really know how long it's going to take. But as a mom, it was helpful whenever you were like, okay, but that's not all. Like, what else is there? And just kind of like continue to press in. And Mackenzie, my older sister right above me, does it really well too. And there's so many times that I like was literally offensive to her. Like I like literally called her names to her face, and she still was like, okay, well, like what else? Like, well, like
what else do you want to call me?
Yeah, just like killed me with kindness completely. And then just affirming all the time, especially as a mom, of like, hey, I want the best for you. Like I want, like, I'm not here like to be the bad parent. I want the best for you. I'm trying to help you. We're on the same team. Just like affirming that just shifts things from, okay, my mom is just someone who's like telling me what I can and can't do, to like this like head-butting relationship, to being like, oh wait, maybe she does want the best for me. It just takes a while for me to realize that, because they're middle schoolers. Like what if, it's like they're not going to know what's best for them. And so those are a few things of like, you're gonna have to have some tough skin working with guys. They're a little different than girls, and the fact that they're not just going to come home and tell you everything about their day.
That's good.
I wish we could. I really do. Like, I really wish that was just easier to just talk about everything like that, but it's not. It's really hard. Yeah.
That's good. I love that. I love that advice. I love that, to pursue, to ask questions, to validate, to affirm, to be kind. I love that. All that. Moms, I think a lot of the times we lose our self-control, or we lose our patience with our sons. But if we are kind to them, then we will open them up. And so that's good. Okay, Don, I interrupted you. So back to you.
No. I just think it's and again, it's a long-term game, parents. A lot of things we're talking about with Michael, and really this also happened with some sibling relationships, particularly with your little brother, Maddox. There was definitely some oil and water, some personality differences, and that fives coming out of you, the frustration with him, kind of describe and yet a friendship as well. So, describe your relationship with him growing up, and McCade for that matter. So Maddox and McCade are the next two in line.
Yeah, I think anybody would be mad whenever you have 5 girls worshiping and adoring everything that you do, and then another
When
one.
you were on the throne.
Yeah, I was on the throne. That's a good way of putting it. And then this little kid comes on and dethrones me completely just because he's a baby. Like,
and he's a really cute baby too.
And he hadn't done a thing.
Yeah, and so that I think deep down that was probably the main issue. I was just like, who is this intruder, this other male figure coming in, and like, this is my territory. Like, what is happening here? And
so you wouldn't say that you embraced him?
No, I did not welcome him. I did not feel like I welcomed him.
I think if he had been a sister, the dynamic would have been radically different, because I think Michael would have totally stepped into that big brother role as a protector sister. But when Maddox came in, it became competition.
Yeah, I would have loved a little sister for sure. But yeah,
but God knew what he was doing by giving you little brothers.
Definitely. I wouldn't trade anything for the world right now. Maddox is going to be a freshman at the University of Arkansas, which I'm going to my senior year right now. And it's like literally the highlight of my life. Like, I cannot wait for him to be up there with me. We're going to be just in the same season again, and it's going to be awesome. I am going, I'm going with, sorry. Anyways, sorry. We went,
sorry, I'm losing it. I just can't. I'm sending Maddox off, and I'm so excited that I'm sending him with Michael, and Michael's going to step into the role of the big brother at a level that he's never done it before, and it's going to be amazing. So I'm over here bawling. So Michael's like, pull it together, Mom. Pull it together, Mom.
Yeah, it's a month away. We're going to miss him terribly.
Oh, yeah.
But really, when y'all were growing up, different personality styles. And different, Maddox can't figure out what Enneagram number he is, which is really funny. But very different personality styles, and you kind of ran over him a little bit in your jealousy, and but yet kind of talk about that, and then when things started to turn.
Yeah, there's no way he could win in anything that I was competing in.
You're bigger, stronger, smarter.
Yeah,
and threatened by him too.
A little bit, yeah. And thinking back on it, it was like, why did I want to play him? Why did I want to play against him in sport? I had nothing to win. Like, if I win, okay, great, the older brother wins. But if he wins, yeah, he's the little brother that beat the older brother.
Yeah.
Like, he wins everything. But if he loses, nothing happens because he just lost to his older brother. I was just like, that was not even like smart for me to even play him, because of the risk to reward ratio is not worth it. But we butted heads a lot, all the time. I honestly saw him as pretty frustrating, pretty annoying, not for anything specific that he did. Like, I guarantee you, if he made a joke and then my friend, like, I wouldn't laugh. And then if my friend made the exact same joke later, I would laugh at that. Like, it was just like who he was. It wasn't anything that he was doing that made me annoyed. And the entire time throughout our relationship, this made me mad. If we go back to what y'all did that made me frustrated, is that y'all would say all the time that y'all would be best friends. Like, siblings are best friends. Like, you just said that since I was 4 years old, and he came along and he was like, you just wait, one day you and Max are going to be best friends. And my like nearsighted 7-year-old self was like, my parents are stupid. Like, there is no way that we are ever going to be best friends. This is my arch nemesis right now. Like, this is not going to happen. And as I got older in high school, like, I think it was around like my junior year, just stuff started changing. We started spending more time together. We started going to church together. We were in car rides together. He was playing basketball and started connecting on a little bit more things, started having similar interests and comments. He started asking a little bit more questions, and like to the point now where like he really is one of my best friends, and he is really one of my favorite people to spend time with. And if you need to listen, he's on next. He's going to the next podcast. He is wise beyond his absolute years, and he's an incredibly deep thinker, and he's unique and quirky and hilarious and loves deep conversation, and somebody that will tell me exactly how it is to my face and not care about like how I think or what I think. He's just like, yeah, I think you're wrong. I'm like, what? You can't tell me that. Like, I'm not wrong. And then he's like, yeah, you are. And here's why. And I'm like, you're right. What the heck? But even that relationship, like we like just talked about perspective and timeline of, it took a long time, took a very, very long time. And it was tough and painful and hard in the beginning years. And now it's the sweetest relationship in my life.
Yeah. And part of that, parents, is just that fight to keep brainwashing your kids, so to speak, that they will be best friends, and helping them instill that belief. And some of that too came from your, and before I would go to that, Suzanne, do you have anything to comment on that?
Comment on them being best friends as
well,
little
and just
kids?
Growing up and, you know, and some of the frustrations with that.
No.
Because
I had something, but we were going to go somewhere else with it. So just go with your question.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember it being frustrating for us as parents, because it was like, I didn't feel like that Maddox could win, and even McCade too, to some extent, that there was, you know, that there was a judgment on them, and trying to figure out how to navigate that. You know, one of the things we talk about is to, you know, inspire in your kids that, you know, one of the things we did try to do, I think, that did have impact over time is, hey, do you realize what that's doing to your brother? You know, yeah. and because I don't think you really wanted to hurt him, but it was just getting over your own annoyance with him, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because like if I was hanging out with all my friends and he'd want to hang out, and I would like say something growing up to like cut him down, and he would be sad, and then one of my friends would say something to like add on to that and cut him down. I was like, hey buddy, you can't speak to my little brother like that. Like, it was like this weird duality.
It was
like,
there. Yeah,
he's like still my brother, and there's still like ownership that I think was a root of what y'all spoke into life, of like he's still family. But yeah.
And I just was gonna, the thing I was thinking of anyway is that it goes back to that perspective that Michael had a perspective of how it should be. And then when God gave him two little brothers, he had to get on board with God's plan. And as soon as he got on board with God's plan, then everything was great. And I think a lot of the times our kids have an idea of how it could be, should be, will be. And when it's not, I mean, not even little kids, all of us, when we all are that way, but when we accept God's plan for it. And I remember that one of the breakthroughs was Michael, when Michael has had a hard time sleeping pretty much ever since he was born. And when he was, I don't even remember how old you were, but when McCade was 1, so however old you were when McCade was 1, I remember putting all 3 of the boys in the same room, a bunk bed and a crib, all in the same room. And that to me was the beginning of Michael accepting his little brothers as people that God has put in his life, because Michael didn't like going to bed, but when he was in that room with those 2 little brothers, then he had a role and a purpose. He was the big brothers. He was going to take care of them. He was going to, and so there was a season there that he had a purpose. And so I just want to talk to parents that as you have siblings that have relationships that are not flowing peacefully, then continue to put the kids together in opportunities. Buy them a Lego set to play with together. Buy them. I remember we did the Wii games, so y'all could play those together, or the video games, or anytime y'all wanted to buy a game where y'all could play it together, like the NBA, whatever, the basketball, whatever. I'm like, yes. And so we would invest in things that would put you guys together to play with, to live together, to do things together. Y'all were too far apart to play the sports on the same sports teams, but the girls were, like Madeline and Macy played on the same sports team. So anything you can do to get them together, that's what we would do.
Yeah. And I want to kind of end the podcast with, I want to explore, like, your relationship with God, particularly, you were talking about how you felt like the black sheep and all those, and during your middle school years, we talked to parents a lot about how you're in the middle school years, and as they go into high school, getting your kids to own their own faith and to challenge, when they challenge us with questions, what do we do with them? Kind of walk us through your belief process. You've already mentioned a little bit, 7th through 9th grade, maybe even going into high school. What's your belief journey?
Yeah, I think mission trips played a big role. They played I wouldn't even call them mission trip. I would just call like mission trips or experiences where I was pushed out of my comfort zone, whatever that looks like.
Like hub camp. Remember that year you went to hub camp? I mean,
yeah, every church camp that we went to, things that it was just like, okay, here's your circumstance that you're in. Let's just take you completely out and drop you in somewhere else.
In fact, that was actually the source of the major conflict that we had. Was you were dating the girl, and then you went to hub camp, had a spiritual experience, and decided to break up with her. Mm-hmm. And then went back to school that year, and you said, no, I'm going to get back with her. And that's when I put my foot down and I said, no, you've heard God's voice. God said at hub camp that you were supposed to break up with her. And that's when you got really frustrated with me. So parents, what my point to that is there's all these ups and downs with the belief process, especially through the middle school years, right? Yeah. Because you went there, got that experience, got back to school, got in that environment, and then saw her again. It was like, oh, now that's overpowered my God experience.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that kind of plays into another factor is during that season, whenever my dad was trying to tell me that stuff, there's key other male role models that played huge parts in my life. I remember one of the youth pastors that we had just like pull me in for lunch one time and was like, hey, let me just tell you my entire story. And he was like, I'm just going to tell you everything, and just like walk through in excruciating detail, uncomfortably amount of detail, like his whole journey in high school and middle school, and then where he is now. And like, I remember being like so sick to my stomach, I didn't even eat lunch that day. And it was just like, he is someone that like called me higher and called me out of the perspective that I was, out of the circumstances that I was in when I was blinded to reality. And there's a few other that I can name. If Dave Schreiner or Rob Shields is listening to this podcast, like the amount of impact that they've spoken into my life and the amount of challenge that they've given me and leadership opportunities and responsibilities, like that solidified a lot of my journey too, where I was like, okay, I know my parents believe in me like that. Yeah, they should, they have to, their blood. But there's people outside, there's male figures outside that I respect and value that are also calling me out higher. I think that was another huge part of my journey.
And these guys are both part of our local church, mm-hmm. That chose to invest in you, and you sought them out through youth group.
Yeah.
And so, again, here comes that involvement in the local church. If, the church didn't do it, but there was a connection made through the church that really had and the church did do it in some ways, but it was really that connection with that older guy. And then, you said mission trips. Do you remember a time when you were like, oh, okay, I think I'm going to follow this God, or was it kind of a gradual thing over time?
I think it was more gradual. I don't think I can point back to I can point back to memories or encounters of the Lord for sure that feel like it was solidifying and taking me from like glory to glory, but I don't. It's a journey. It's a process. I was baptized very, very early, and And then it just like slowly but surely clicked. Like I remember going to youth group for the first time, not wanting to go at all. And
What grade?
Freshman year,
Yeah.
just about probably, yeah, summer of freshman year, right when I like could go to the high school with the high schoolers, and not wanting to go at all, kind of frustrated, pretty distant from the Lord, and just like literally sitting there during worship and just like reading the words on the screen. Wasn't singing, wasn't participating, didn't want to do anything, but I was just like being exposed to it and reading the words on the screen and being like, okay, there's something here. Some people are encountering something here that's interesting. And then coming next week, and then coming the week after, and then coming the week after, and like sure enough, I've been encountering the Lord every week and listening to a sermon and participating in conversation. And the amount of walls that I built up didn't just come all crumbling down at one time. Like it was just like a slow chisel from people, from the Lord, from worship, from encounters, from groups, from discussions. And that eventually was like, okay, here I am. Like, Lord, what do you want to do now?
And a big influence from Mackenzie again, just pursuing you as an older sister. I just amazed. I've told this story many times to people, but Mackenzie was a junior and Michael was in 8th grade, and Mackenzie pursued him. Michael even said he called her name sometimes when she'd come by his room.
Yep.
Just a persistent pursuit of Michael wound up having a dramatic impact in your life as she just kept inviting you in with her friends.
Yeah.
Which is crazy for a junior in high school to do that.
Yeah, and it was funny because it's like so opposite. Like usually an 8th grader or a freshman would do anything to hang out with upperclassmen. Like, and Kenzie would be like, "You want to come hang out with me, my friends?" And I was like, "No, Mackenzie, stop talking to me. Like, just get away from me." She's like, "Okay." And the next time she would come and do the same thing. "Hey, Mike, you want to come hang out with me, my friends?" And I probably rejected her like upwards of 100 times, like no joke, for almost a full year straight, until eventually she was persistent enough where I was like, "Fine, Mackenzie, I will come, but only if you never ask me again." And I came and I went. And not only was she pursuing me on like face to face on my end, but she also had everybody in the youth group like praying for me to come and telling people about me. So when I walked into the youth group for the first time, it was like I'd been there for years. People were like, "Oh my gosh, you're Michael Manning. I've heard
You're
so
famous.
much about you. Like, I'm so glad that you're here." To the point where I was like, I could care less about God at that time. The timeline is right. I was just not in a great place with the Lord, and didn't come back to, I went to youth the next week because I was like, I don't really care about the worship and the message that's going on, but the way that I felt from the people that were there, unmatched. I was like, that was like a breath of fresh air. That was like water in the middle of a desert. I have to be a part of that. And that's why I started coming back week after week. And during those times, that's when I was reading the words on the worship screen. That's when I was listening to the message and just kind of being exposed to it and activating thoughts. Until eventually I look up and it's sophomore year and I'm leading the group. And junior year, we're multiplying the group. And senior year, we're passing off the group. And it's just like the Lord works in the day-to-day.
Well, and you were talking about before how learning to hear God's voice when you were a freshman, and and just thinking that's strange and nobody can do that, and yet by the end of your sophomore year, you are coming to us saying, "I really have heard God's voice, and I have a radical change in my life in following the Lord." So explain that a little bit as we go forward here.
Yeah. Into my sophomore year, decided to leave the traditional high school system and do what a lot of people are doing now, do like dual credit classes for my junior and senior year
At a junior college.
And so wasn't in school, or wasn't in a high school anymore. I was essentially doing college as a junior in high school. So I had college classes Tuesday, Thursday, college schedule, was starting to work a little bit. Really with the emphasis of getting involved in the same church that welcomed me in 2 years before.
But let me set that up a little bit. I'm gonna set that up a little bit more. End of his sophomore year, Michael's at a very good Christian school. He's a linebacker on the football team, made 100 tackles his sophomore year, has a has
The varsity football team.
varsity
He was
football
playing
team.
JV and varsity. He was the leader in the school. He would have been
Yes.
class president, homecoming
I don't
king.
know.
I mean, it was laid out for him because of the call on his life that God had given him to be a leader, and he can't help but lead wherever he is. And so
And
all
it
those
comes
things
to
had played
us.
into it. He had this beautiful, beautiful system set up for him, if you will, that he could be a huge success in. And
comes to us and says, I think I want to quit high school and go to NCTC for junior college. And I'm like, really? This is what
there's
the
some
Lord's
things that
telling
died
you?
and dawned, because we
Yeah.
liked being in the stands hearing Michael Manning with the touchdown.
Yeah.
Couldn't
And
happen.
just, I said, do you realize, Michael, that there's about 1 million high school boys who would kill for the opportunity you have the next couple of years? And, but, as parents, are we going to let him hear God's voice? Are we going to let him step out in faith? And so we just processed it with him. And
One of the things that Don said, which you guys will remember, is Don said, you're walking away from $1 million deal. So you just need to make sure that you're going after a $2 million deal. I mean, and what was so cool is that he was walking away from a worldly $1 million deal, but he was walking toward a multi-million-dollar kingdom deal.
Yeah.
I mean, and even as parents, we had a hard time seeing that clearly, but as Michael walked it and did it and pursued the Lord and led for the Lord and not for the football team, it did multiply. It was a multi-million-dollar experience that you got to have and lead and do when it came to kingdom things.
Yeah, and it matured you a lot and got you saw. And just tell us about that experience of a couple of years, how that grew your faith when you did something radically different.
Yeah, it is definitely the biggest transition I've had in my life until now. And you just, when the Lord speaks, he speaks, and it's soft and it's quiet, but it's also something that you are beyond sure of. And that was the situation I was in, where I was like, listen, Mom, Dad, I respect your authority. I respect the position that you're in. We were sitting outside in Chipotle, the best place ever. And like, I feel like the Lord's moving me away from this, and I don't understand why. And I'm not asking you to understand why, but this is where I think the Lord has me in this next season. And yeah, it was awesome. It was very hard. It was very, very hard. And even to this day, it's still hard to go back to high school games or watch high school movies, like whatever that looks like, just because I miss it. I loved football so much. But I want to shake up the kingdom. Like I want to shake up eternity. And I felt like that's what the Lord is calling me, where I didn't have necessarily time to get involved into Valley Creek the way that I wanted to get involved in my local church the way that I wanted to. And looking back on it now, I don't know who I would have been if I spent the next 2 years in high school. Like I really don't know what trajectory I would have been on, but I'm glad that the Lord has provided and taken care of me from just simply obeying his voice back then. And so it was a cool experience, and I felt supported. I feel supported now back then, because I was just like, it wasn't, y'all saying no didn't really feel like an option in my brain. Whenever I was like presenting it to you, I was like, this is kind of what's happening. I'm sorry. Like, I think I would have, if y'all like made me go to Liberty, I think I would have done it, but I was like just really confident. Looking back on it now, I'm like, yeah, y'all did a very good job in supporting me and caring for me and like letting me like step out on this leap of faith. But also the Lord's plan is just so much better than ours. Like we can put out our 5-year plan and cast vision, and the Lord can change it like that. And there's so many ways that I grew, ways that other people grew just in those seasons that I got involved in Valley Creek that wouldn't trade for the world by any means.
Well, Suzanne, any final comments as we wrap up? I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. And so just as my last closing comment is that, parents, as you raise if you have a child like Michael that is independent, that is introvert, that has that competitive edge, that's got a crazy leadership call on their lives, then the sooner you can point them toward God, and then the sooner you can come along beside them, asking those questions, being kind, investing in them, affirming them, all of those things, then you are just raising up a mighty warrior for the kingdom. I mean, we just feel it. It's been an honor to raise Michael. It's been so much fun. We've enjoyed him, and we look back over that little time period, and I'm glad that you shared it. And I'm glad that, that people don't see us as squeaky clean and we've got it all together and stuff like that. But it's part of life. It's part of the journey. It's like Don always says, it's the long game, and it's over time. It's the journey that it's what it's all about. It's the journey toward Jesus. And so I just want to encourage you parents to just continue to press into those little boys, to know them well. Daddies continue to call out the man in them, and mamas continue to love them well. And you will have a mighty man of God on your hands in no time.
Yeah. I don't know about in no time. It's a long-term game. It really is.
Yes, I know, but in no time. And that we look up and Michael's 22. It's over.
Yeah,
it's done. It's in no
Yeah.
time. I mean, you look back and it's like
you're over and
you're up
done.
to your eyeballs and all this stuff, and then it's over.
And it's just the theme I keep out of this podcast, and is it's a long-term game. We look at, I look at the struggles we looked at, when Michael and Maddox were fighting, or Michael and McCade were fighting, or when, Michael and I are fighting, and we just kept fighting the good fight, and and God redeems it, and kept pursuing the relationships and helping you to pursue the relationship with your siblings, and breakthroughs happen. And so, man, thanks for being here with us, Michael.
Michael, is there anything you want to say to parents that are raising a kid like you?
Good luck. Good luck. Yeah, I think men in particular, firstborn men, all men in the family, have a desire to be challenged, to be called higher. And in our natural state, we will reject it and we will get frustrated with it. But it's one of those things that perspective and time tells all things. And it's challenging to go against, but whenever you know what's best for your child, you do know what's best. Most likely, you really do know what's best, especially in the little ages, and communicating that from a place of community and a place of we're on the same team. I want what's best for you. Here's why, and explaining the why. I think it's crucial for especially a 5, if you are a 5, or just someone who's a little bit more introverted, a little bit more deep thinker, is they always have thoughts going on, and it just takes questions, and it takes a lot of questions, and it takes a lot of chiseling away at the walls to let it come down. But once it does, it's really sweet. I think 5s are the best people to be in a relationship with, if you can do it. If you can do it, but I'm a little biased.
Yeah. So parents, in the wisdom of Michael, good luck raising your firstborn son.
You got this.
Yeah,
You're
got this. And I really just want to speak to, I feel like the Lord just, if you're a parent in the middle of the situation right now, where your middle schooler is just in the middle of being a punk, as Michael called himself, or, you've got sibling issues, relationships, just keep persevering. Keep going, because if you pursue it right, there's hope, and the relationships will have breakthrough. So thanks again, Michael. And as always, parents, go be crazy with your parenting, crazycoolfamily.com.